November 30, 2018. A business traveler checks his email over morning coffee. His screen suddenly floods with red alerts and urgent notifications. The Marriott data breach had exposed the records of 500 million guests. His stomach dropped with dread. Every hotel stay from the past 4 years, the romantic anniversary in Paris, the secret business trip to Vegas, or even the weekend he told his wife he was in Denver, all of it had been stolen. But here is what almost no one realized yet. The hackers had been hiding inside Marriott's systems since 2014, for long years of quietly watching, recording, and building detailed dossiers on diplomats, Fortune 500 CEOs, and even intelligence operatives. The most terrifying part of this entire story is that not a single stolen data record ever appeared on the dark web. Not one piece of information was sold for profit. These were not common criminals looking for quick cash. Someone wanted to know where 500 million people across the globe slept, and they got it. Who needs that kind of terrifying, comprehensive information? And why would they refuse to monetize such a massive data haul? March 2014. Inside the headquarters of Starwood Hotels and Resorts, an employee named Marcus opened what looked like a perfectly routine email, an invoice from a familiar vendor. He clicked the attachment. Nothing happened. Or so he thought. In that microsecond, a remote access Trojan called PlugX silently burrowed its way into Starwood's network, opening a persistent backdoor. This act was the digital equivalent of handing the keys to your home to a smuggler. The intruders moved with the subtlety of smoke. The first rule of digital breaking and entering is never touch anything for the first 72 hours. Simply observe. Learn the system's routine. Who logs in and when. Which servers talk to which. By day 4, they deployed their favorite toy, a tool called Mim. It sounds innocent, but it is deadly, capable of extracting passwords from system memory. Within minutes, they had the prize they were seeking, the sysadmin administrator credentials. Picture this as stealing the master keycard from the hotel manager. Suddenly, every door, every safe, every restricted area, was wide open without resistance. The attackers did not simply rifle through the place. They became a part of the place. Starwood's reservation database handled 50,000 transactions every hour, including guest names, credit card numbers, passport numbers, and the attackers were logging every single data point, while the victims remained completely oblivious that they were being robbed. Starwood's own security team had been warning of the danger for months. The reservation system was a sitting duck, a vulnerable target waiting to be hit. One engineer wrote in an internal memo, just weeks before the breach truly began, anyone who gets in can stay in forever. But those warnings languished unread in someone's inbox. The system remained just as exposed as before. Ironically, while the main attackers were hiding in plain sight, an entirely different, unrelated criminal group, a bunch of Russians, also broke into the same network and stole 54 credit card numbers. Starwood caught those amateurs 8 months later, and they walked away thinking they had solved their security problem. They never realized that the real predators were still inside, quietly watching them celebrate that false victory. By December 2015, the intruders had been in residence for 21 months. They had collected 127 million data records, and the count was rising steadily. Christmas shoppers booked holiday travel. Business people plotted Q1 meetings. Every reservation created a new entry in the growing encyclopedia of human movement. But a massive event was about to take place, one that would triple their access overnight. Starwood was looking for a buyer, and the attackers were about to get a much bigger playground. But why would they choose a hotel in the first place? And what happens when you try to merge two massive companies, while criminals are literally living on your servers? September 23, 2016. In a Manhattan boardroom, Marriott CEO, Arne Sorensen, signed the documents that would haunt him forever. The $13.6 billion deal to acquire a deal that created the world's largest hotel empire. Champagne popped, and executives shook hands in celebration. 30 floors below, a Marriott IT professional named Rachel sent an email that no one would read. Has anyone performed a deep dive security audit on Starwood's systems? The answer was yes. A rushed, 48-hour check that found nothing, because they were only looking for financial fraud, not cybersecurity issues. The attackers, watching this entire corporate drama unfold from inside the Starwood servers, must have been secretly laughing. Imagine the two biggest hotel chains in the world joining forces. That was Marriott and Starwood. By the end of 2016, Marriott cut 17% of Starwood's workforce. They called it efficiency measures. The first people to go were the entire Starwood cybersecurity team, the very people who built the reservation system, the people who knew its quirks, its vulnerabilities, its dark corners. They all received severance packages. By Thanksgiving, Sarah Martinez, Starwood's top security architect for 8 years, packed up her desk on Friday. By Monday, her administrator access had been transferred to a Marriott employee who had never seen the Starwood code before. Now, the attackers knew the system better than its new owners did. The integration plan read like a horror movie script. Phase 1 was maintain separate systems for 18 months. Translation: leave the infected Starwood network running untouched. Phase 2 was migrate data gradually, starting in Q3 2017, which meant continue feeding the attackers new data for another year. Every decision made for good business reasons extended the breach. Every month of careful integration was another month of customer data leaking. By early 2017, the attackers had access to both the old Starwood data and new Marriott reservations, all flowing through the same infected pipeline. The numbers were staggering. Every single day, the merged company processed 1.1 million bookings. The attackers were pulling out approximately 400,000 records per day. They couldn't take everything without triggering alerts, so they were highly selective and targeted. Government email domains, passport entries, and credit cards tied to major corporations. They were building what intelligence agencies would later call targeting packages. Complete lifestyle dossiers of interesting individuals. You stayed at the Sheraton in Moscow. Flagged. You flew to Hong Kong 6 times last year. Flagged. Your corporate credit card shows defense contractor payment codes. Bingo. Meanwhile, Marriott's technology teams were busy fighting other fires. Just integrating the loyalty program cost $140 million. They were merging 30 different property management systems. They were standardizing Wi-Fi across 6,700 properties. No one had the bandwidth to look at the authentication logs, showing sysadmin accessing the database at 3 a.m. Why would they? The attackers had long learned to move within Marriott's scheduled maintenance windows. Their activity blended into the noise of legitimate system updates. It was like robbing a bank during a fire drill. Everyone was too distracted to notice. March 2018. The attackers were now inside for a full 4 years. Their data harvesting operation had evolved from smash and grab to surgical precision. They weren't just taking data anymore. They were meticulously organizing it, cross-referencing guests who stayed at multiple properties, building relationship maps of people who traveled together, creating timelines of sensitive trips. One intelligence analyst later described it as the most comprehensive database of human movement ever stolen. But their luck was about to run out, because, in their attempt to take just one more bit, they were about to make their first and only mistake. How did a 4-year invisible heist suddenly become visible, and why did the attackers risk everything for one final score? September 8, 2018. Michael Torres, the graveyard shift employee at Marriott's Security Operations Center, was nursing his third cup of coffee when his screen exploded in red. Alert after alert cascaded down. Someone had just pulled 17 gigabytes of data from the Starwood reservation database in just 12 seconds. That wasn't a query. That was a heist in progress. Michael's hands shook as he typed in the account that was executing the request. An administrator who had been laid off 2 years prior. His credentials should have been disabled, but they weren't just active. They were downloading everything. Michael immediately hit the kill switch, locking the system down. All administrator access was frozen. Then, he made the call that would change everything. We have a critical situation. Someone is inside the Starwood system. They are taking everything. Within 9 minutes, Marriott's entire cyber incident response team was online. Executives were woken up. The FBI was called. And for the first time in 1,460 days, the attackers realized they were burned. They attempted a final desperate grab for more gigabytes before the Marriott team cut their connection forever. Marriott brought in Accenture's computer forensics team. Think CSI High-Tech Edition. They found the Plug X Trojan, buried so deep it had root access to everything. They found the Mimikatz footprints across 17 servers. They found the command and control beacons, pinging back to servers in Hong Kong. But the worst discovery came when they found a single file containing 73 gigabytes of compressed data, encrypted and staged for exfiltration by the attackers. The Marriott team stared at it like a bomb they couldn't defuse. Whatever was in there represented for years of theft, and they couldn't even open it. The forensics team worked 18-hour days. Coffee cups piled up, marriages were strained. They traced the intrusion, step by agonizing step. The initial breach in March 2014. November 2014. The compromised administrator account. July 2015. The database access established in January 2016. The decryption keys had been stolen. The attackers had taken the key to decrypt the credit card numbers and stored it on the same server. This was the equivalent of pasting your PIN on your ATM card. Then, September 2016. The Marriott merger. The timeline read like a medical chart for a patient who didn't know they were dying. Finally, on October 15, 2018, after 5 weeks of brute force computing, they cracked the encrypted data file. The room fell silent. Inside were 500 million guest records, 327 million with full names, addresses, phone numbers, emails, 20 million passport numbers in plain text, 8.7 million encrypted credit cards. Except the attackers had also stolen the encryption keys, leaving them virtually unprotected. 5.25 million unencrypted passport numbers, lying there, like social security numbers for sale at a flea market. This hack wasn't just big, it was if printed out, the stolen data would create a stack of paper that would reach the International Space Station. But here is what chilled everyone to the core. The data was systematically organized, not randomly grabbed records. Government employees in one folder, Fortune 500 CEOs in another, foreign nationals with U.S. entry visas, categorized separately. This is not how criminals organize data for sale. This is how intelligence agencies organize data for analysis. Marriott's general counsel picked up the phone and called a number he had never dialed before. The corporate security liaison for the CIA. We need to talk about who might want a database of where every important person in the world sleeps. The board meeting that night lasted until 3 a.m. Should they go public immediately, or wait for more information? The lawyers wanted more time. The PR team wanted to control the narrative, but California's breach notification law gave them only 72 hours from discovery, and they were already in hour 68. CEO Arne Sorensen made the final decision. We tell the world tomorrow morning. The press release was drafted 14 times, each version trying to explain how 500 million people just had their lives stolen, without making it sound like a corporate disaster. In the next 12 hours, Marriott would face the full fury of the world. But first, someone needed to answer the one question no one wanted to ask. Who stole 500 million people's travel records, and didn't sell them? And why did not a single stolen credit card ever appear on the dark web? The press release dropped within 17 seconds. It was the top story on every major news outlet. Marriott hacked, 500 million guests exposed. Your phone was buzzing. Your mother texted, "Were you at the Westin last month?" Your boss emailed, "Was our corporate account compromised?" Your spouse asked the question everyone was thinking, "What do they know about us?" The answer was everything. Where you went, who you met, when you traveled. Marriott's call centers, built to handle 10,000 calls per day, received 47,000 calls in the first hour. The website crashed. From 16 million simultaneous hits. Beth from Portland couldn't remember if she used Marriott to hide trips during her divorce proceedings. James in London realized his illicit affair just became hackable evidence. Sarah in D.C., a CIA analyst, knew immediately her cover was blown. Every vacation to Berlin, Prague, Moscow, now mapped in the enemy's hands. But the weirdest part remained. No stolen credit cards surfaced. Not a single one. The dark web marketplaces, where stolen data usually appears within 48 hours, showed nothing. No Marriott passports were for sale. No identity theft gangs bragged about their score. It was as if the thieves had stolen Fort Knox and left the gold untouched. The lawsuits came like an avalanche. By December 3, 3 days after the announcement, Marriott faced 31 class action lawsuits. That number reached 100 by Christmas. Lawyers calculated the damages, $12.5 billion if every victim claimed maximum compensation. One suit called it the most irresponsible data security failure in corporate history. Another revealed that Accenture managed Starwood's IT security, spreading the legal chaos. But the most damaging lawsuit came from Marriott's own shareholders. They alleged that executives concealed the scope of the breach to protect the stock price. Internal emails surfaced, showing the IT staff warnings from 2016. Starwood security is a disaster waiting to happen. The disaster happened, and management had failed to listen. Then, A bombshell no one expected. December 11, 2018. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo held an emergency press briefing. The Marriott breach, he said, measuring his words, is Chinese intelligence? The room erupted. This wasn't cybercrime. It was espionage. The New York Times headline screamed, China turned hotels into surveillance weapon. Suddenly, every government employee who had ever stayed at any Marriott property realized they had been location-mapped. The pattern became clear. As analysts connected the data points, in 2014, China hacked the Office of Personnel Management, OPM. 22 million government employees exposed on in 2015, the Anthem insurance breach, 80 million health records stolen. In 2017, the Equifax hack, 145 million credit records taken, and in 2018, the Marriott disclosure, 500 million travel histories seized. This wasn't random theft. It was a systematic collection. China was building what experts called the database of databases, a complete map of American society. Government records told them who you were. Credit reports showed how you lived. Insurance revealed your vulnerabilities. And Marriott told them where you went. Combined, it was a surveillance state's dream. Total information, awareness of enemies, allies, and everyone in between. The UK struck first, January 2019, proposing a £99 million fine, the largest in UK history. Marriott failed at the most fundamental level, the Information Commissioner declared. Europe followed suit with GDPR violations, which could lead to a 4% global revenue fine, potentially $1 billion. US states stepped up as well. New York wanted $900 million, and California demanded answers. The stock market delivered its own verdict. Marriott dropped 5.6% in one day, wiping out $4 billion in market value. But money is just numbers. The real cost was trust. Hilton ran ads about security you can rely on, and Hyatt emailed customers about their superior protection. March 2019. Marriott CEO faced the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Senator Josh Hawley was unforgiving. You bought a company, fired their security team. You let hackers live in your system for 4 years, and you want us to believe this won't happen again? Sorensen's response revealed the truth no one wanted to hear. Senator, we are not equipped to fight nature. No hotel company is. And he was right. When your adversary has infinite resources, a hacking team of thousands, and no fear of prosecution, how can you ever win? But that admission opened another door. If China did this, why? What is the strategic value of knowing where everyone sleeps? And why was the US government more alarmed by this breach than any other? January 2020. The U.S. Justice Department indicted 4 members of the Chinese People's Liberation Army Unit 61398, the same cyber warfare division, linked to hacking, Google, RSA, Security, and Lockheed Martin. Marriott was listed as victim company 1. The attackers' real names were released: Wang Chen, Shu Kai, Lu Lei, Wu Jiang. Their photos circulated, young men in military fatigues, who would never see the inside of an American courtroom. The message was symbolic. We know who you are. We know what you did. We can't touch you, but we are watching. China wanted to know which Americans to recruit, blackmail, or eliminate. Think about this. You know, a diplomat stays at the Sheraton Beijing every March. You know they travel alone. You know their room preference, membership number, personal email. You can now arrange accidental meetings, plant listening devices before they arrive, assign attractive strangers to the hotel bar. The KGB used to call this trajectory analysis, mapping a person's life, to find the perfect moment to strike. Marriott handed China 500 million trajectories on a platter. In the meantime, Marriott transformed itself inside out. A new chief information security officer, recruited from the Pentagon. $200 million cybersecurity overhaul. Quantum encryption for sensitive databases. Biometric access controls. 24/7 threat hunting teams. The Starwood reservation system, that zombie network that allowed everything to happen, was finally decommissioned and buried. Every employee was retrained. Every password was reset. Every system was rebuilt. It was a corporate chemotherapy, killing off everything old to save the company by 2021. Marriott claimed to have the most secure reservation system in the hotel industry. Maybe so, but that's like saying you have the most solid lock. After, the thieves made a copy of everything inside. Meanwhile, the settlements dripped out like a slow-bleeding wound. The UK fine was negotiated down to £18.4 million. The U.S. states settled for $52 million. Class action suits were settled for undisclosed sums. Total costs through 2023. Estimated at $280 million in direct expenses, plus billions in lost revenue and trust. But here is the punchline. Marriott's cyber insurance paid for most of it. The company that enabled the largest travel surveillance operation in history paid less than the cost of renovating one luxury property. Cybercrime is profitable, but the negligence is paid for via insurance claims. The breach changed everything and nothing. Hotels still collect your data. Governments still hack each other. Your passport number is still floating in some intelligence database you will never see. But the next time you check into a hotel, hand over your credit card. Share your passport. Remember this. You are not just booking a room. You are creating a data point in humanity's largest surveillance network. Every hotel, every airline, every rental car company, all collecting, storing, and vulnerable. The Marriott breach wasn't the end. It was a proof of concept. If China could live undetected in one system for 4 years, where else are they right now? Who else is watching your smart TV, your fitness tracker, your coffee maker with Wi-Fi? The real lesson isn't about Marriott, it's about us. We traded our privacy for points, our security for convenience, our secrets for a free breakfast. The hackers didn't break down the door. We held it open for them, one reservation at a time. And somewhere in Beijing, in a building you will never see, on servers you will never access, sits a database with your name, where you have been, who you have met. When you travel, Marriott proved that corporate security is only as strong as the company you are about to buy.